All right, we're live. Okay. If anybody watches this or ends up joining, I am just jumping on here to do a live stream, mostly to test some new camera settings and things. I'm still trying to get the quality of the live stream perfected. So, yeah, this is where we're at right now. This is what the quality is looking like. Tweaked some of the settings on the camera to try to get the video quality a little bit better and get some of the light intensity down. So I hope it's coming through. Still a little bit of work to be done. That's okay. Some updates for Curious About Cannabis. Let's see. Yesterday, I did a podcast interview with Jorge Cervantes, which was really awesome. Jorge, his books, and especially the Ultimate Grow video series that Jorge did back in the day, I think in the early 2000s or so, all of that really taught me how to cultivate cannabis. Back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, or in that time frame, and I watched those videos religiously over and over and over again, and took notes. And I still have my copy of the marijuana horticulture book somewhere. I thought I had it somewhere right around here. Maybe I moved it. Um, so yesterday was a really big deal for me just because Jorge Cervantes has just been a big part of my cannabis education that I began embarking on a long time ago. It's crazy to think that it's been almost 2 decades that I've been studying cannabis, using cannabis. So yeah, so I got to interview Jorge Cervantes. Super cool. We talked about cultivation. He has a new book out and a couple of new books that he kind of teased he might be working on. And we talk about that, talk about some of his experiences seeing the evolution of the cannabis industry, the evolution of cannabis cultivation. I got his thoughts on that. We talked about why he chose Spain to live in. Um, yeah, so it was a really great conversation. Went a little over an hour. I'm working on getting that edited. Hopefully, have it posted really soon. Definitely, I'll have the video really soon because the videos for the full interviews I don't edit quite as much sometimes as the versions that go up on the audio on Spotify and all of that. So I might have that ready possibly by tomorrow. Today I interviewed Usama Badad from Trilogene Seeds, and we talked all about cannabis genetics and gene editing, polyploidy, all sorts of things like that. Super interesting conversation. The hour went by super fast, and we only had an hour to record it in, so we ended up having to kind of stop abruptly. It just because Usama had other things that he had to go do, but it was a great conversation, and I think we'll probably have to have another one to really continue to unpack some of the concepts because we were getting deep into misconceptions around gene editing and genetically modified organisms, pretty touchy subjects that some people are quite sensitive about. And so it was really, really good conversation. So I'll have that ready in the next week or two. And then I'm also working on feature episodes again. If you don't know what those are, when the Curious About Cannabis podcast first launched, I had all of these behind the scenes interviews that you're accustomed to seeing me post, but I also produced feature episodes that would focus on a topic, and they'd be kind of like an NPR style 45-minute production. And it would include excerpts from all sorts of different interviews, as well as narrations from me, and music and sound effects, and all sorts of things to really put together a show. And those episodes take a lot of work, time, and energy to make, as you might imagine. And I do everything myself. I don't have an editor, I don't have anybody to help with any of the media production I do. It's all me. So I stopped doing those for a couple of years just out of necessity, because I've gone through a lot of big life changes over the past year or two, some of which I've talked about on the podcast and some that I haven't. And so there was a period of time, in 2020 through 2022 that I really struggled to work or produce content. Um, so I'm getting back to making those feature episodes. I've got the first one done. So this will mark the 11th feature episode I've produced. And it's all about the cannabis plant and its life cycle, as well as its place in evolutionary history. I kind of break down the evolutionary history of the cannabis plant as far as we know it so far. Um, we talk about what it takes to grow cannabis, basic conditions for growing that folks that are new to cannabis might not be familiar with. Then we talk about all the ways that cannabis changes from the moment it's harvested all the way to the moment that a consumer has it. It's a pretty cool episode. I think that one thing I'm trying to do is return to a lot of the basics. I've realized from, especially over the last years, I've really gotten more active and last year attended several conferences to give talks and did more events. And so I'm getting more interaction with the public than I was able to have, from 2020 and 2021. And I'm realizing that there are still a lot of misconceptions or just ignorance around really basic things around how the cannabis plant grows, and what it takes to make a cannabis bud that someone might buy at a dispensary. So I'm trying to do more content that comes back to those core basics to make sure we don't lose track of those, while also still pushing into the more intermediate and advanced topics that I, kind of normally do. So that feature episode, is going to release very soon, within the next couple of days, probably. I'm doing some last minute tweaks and trying to stop myself, but the edit's already at 45 minutes. And I restrict myself to those episodes only being no more than 45 minutes. So there's not much more that can happen to it. So I'll release that soon. And I hope that if you check it out, I hope you like it. I look forward to making more feature episodes. There's just something about them. They're more fun to listen to, I think. Just more interesting, and ultimately, I like producing shows. Even though I'm a scientist, I'm very much also an artist, and I love producing media. And so making these feature episodes is just a lot more interesting to me. So we'll see more feature episodes coming out. I have about 9 or 10 podcast interviews to do over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So a lot of Curious About Cannabis content coming soon. I might give a little sneak peek of the guest list on the Patreon. I'm starting to think about reviving the Patreon, and I don't know, I go back and forth on it. When we first started Curious About Cannabis, I really pushed the Patreon as a way for people to support the show, and for me to, be able to offer special things to our supporters. And then we moved over to a membership platform on the CAC podcast website. And it's been fine, but I've found that a lot of people, they seem to think of Patreon as like a way to donate and support. And they don't respond the same way to the membership platform, even though it's the exact same thing. So I don't know. We might end up going back to the Patreon. Still exists. You can go to patreon.com/curiousaboutcannabis, and you can sign up if you want to support any of the work that I'm doing. But yeah, I might start making more posts on Patreon just to see what happens. I don't know. I'm figuring this stuff out as I go. I'm trying to think of what other updates we might have. Well, the Curious About Cannabis Masterclass is coming up next month, at the end of the month, on March 23rd. We still have a couple of spots open. I issued all of these scholarship awards. So if you applied for a scholarship, if you received one or have been offered one, you should have gotten an email. Is that yesterday or the day before? So there's that. If you're still wanting to get in on the class, you can go to masterclasscannabis.com and learn about it. We've got over a dozen special guests, tons of scientists, clinicians, just all sorts of awesome folks that will be presenting and interacting with the class. And then, of course, you get to work with me for 6 months learning about cannabis science. And the class is also personalized. So whatever you're uniquely interested in, you also spend that 6 months exploring and learning. So, yeah, if you want to get in on the class, a couple spots left and then it'll be full. We cap it out because it requires a lot of one-on-one interaction from me as an educator. And so once we get more than about 20 people in the class or so, it just gets to be too much. And everyone kind of suffers a little bit for it because I can't do meetings as easily. Class discussions start to get a little crazy. So that's that. So if you want to get in on this year's class, this is the only one we're doing this year. It's just an annual event because it's 6 months long. So jump on that, masterclasscannabis.com. And yeah, so what else do we have to do? I think I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've been working on the virtual campus, some little virtual exhibits, and then that'll probably be it because I really just wanted to see how the camera's looking, make sure the video quality's working right, that these changes I made to the camera were worthwhile. So let me see here. Let's get... Okay, here we go. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. All right, so I've been continuing to work to try to reduce how bulky the virtual campus is. So if you've been trying to explore it and it's slow and laggy, I get it. It's frustrating. It really depends on the device and a lot of other variables. Because the virtual campus is a web application, it can, performance can vary quite a bit depending on what device you have. So one thing I'm going to be doing is creating an entry point to the virtual campus that doesn't load any of the virtual assets that are in the environment, just so that people can at least get into the system without things going crazy. And then they can press a button to load all of the assets and wait for everything to load. I think that might be a more smooth way to kind of introduce people to the system. But right now I'm just on my basic laptop and it's running fine. I do have to wait about 20 seconds or so for everything to load. There's a little hologram of myself that I made as like an introduction to the virtual campus. That's new. I also added a couple things here, things about becoming a member and downloading the app. One thing that's new, I don't want to spoil all the secrets, but I'm excited about this. So down here, you notice there's a lighter and some rolling papers here. If you click on the lighter, it'll load this little exhibit where you can explore the smoke of cannabis to a degree. I'm not done with it, but you can kind of get a sense of it. So you see these clouds and you can go inside. And when you go inside, there are all of these molecules that are molecules that you would find in cannabis smoke. And I'm not going to tell you what they all are here because I'm going to end up doing a contest on the Discord in not too long. and I'm going to ask folks to try to identify every molecule that is here. But you can start to take a guess here. But I thought this was kind of fun. Cool thing to explore the chemistry of cannabis smoke. And then if you want this to go away, and I don't explain this in the virtual campus, so those of you watching, you're the only ones that I've explained this to. But to make it go away, you click the rolling papers, and then you go back to where you were. Let's see, what else have I added in here? Let's see. I know that I did a decarboxylation exhibit over here in the Cannabis Chemistry building. If you click the pipe, it'll be somewhat of a similar situation here. We've got a little thing describing what decarboxylation is. We have a little model of THCA. And then if we click the lighter, we ignite the lighter, and we can see this little demonstration of decarboxylation where we have this transformation to delta 9 THC. We've got carbon dioxide floating off there. So yeah, that's that. And you just click go back to load the original. Another thing, kind of the last thing I'll show you, is on the endocannabinoid system building. You'll notice that there's anandamide and 2AG here now. And I'm not done, so it looks a little wonky because I haven't added labels and things. But if you click the anandamide, it will load a little thing telling you about anandamide. And then we've got anandamide's molecular structure here that you can explore. And then here we have two of the common metabolic products of anandamide, arachidonic acid and ethanolamine. Likewise, you can do 2AG and look at 2AG and see the metabolic products back there. Yeah, so that's a couple things that I've been working on here. The goal of the virtual campus, it's a slow project, but ultimately it's a place where people can go on a virtual field trip to learn about cannabis science. And I really want it to be a resource educators can use to literally bring groups of students in here to give lessons, demos, etc. So I'll be adding more exhibits and things like that over time as I am able. One thing that I just figured out how to do in here as well is flying. So it is actually possible to fly around in the virtual campus to get a bird's eye view of things. You just have to hit the space bar so that your settings come up here, and then you can click flying enabled, and then you won't be stuck to the ground anymore, and you can roam around this way too. Personally, I like exploring in the flying mode more than walking. But anyway, that's some of the stuff that I've worked on there. I don't remember if last time that I did a live stream, if I showed you these, but if you do come through here, I do recommend clicking on these to learn some cool stuff. But yeah, there's our moon. But anyway, let me switch back over here. That's about all I've got for now. One other announcement. The Curious About Cannabis book. I've gotten multiple people ask me when there will be more books available through the Curious About Cannabis website. There are folks that want to get signed copies or just want to buy copies directly from me rather than buying them on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, etc. So just because of the cost of ordering books, I have I have not been able to order a whole bunch of books at once, basically. So I've been getting little shipments in, and because of that, they are selling out pretty much immediately. So what I've done is on the website, I've opened it up so that now there's a back ordering system so that if you do want to get in line to buy a book directly from me, that I'll sign for you and everything. Um, you can go and order the book. You just have to understand that shipping is going to take a little longer than normal because depending on where you fall in line, I might have to wait for a new shipment. Whereas some people, they might catch it right as I get a new shipment. So it's going to be highly variable as far as when folks receive their books. But if you do want one directly from me and you want me to write something in it or sign it, happy to do that. And all you have to do is go to cacpodcast.com/book and you can order it there. There's also the digital version. A lot of people don't realize that there's a digital version of the book available. If you go to cacpodcast.com/book, you can find the link to buy the digital version. And the digital version's interesting because it's not just a Kindle version, which you can get a Kindle version if you go to Amazon, but if you buy the digital version from me, you actually get access to like a little portal where I can add materials, update the text if I find errors, that sort of thing. So it's a little more dynamic. So anyway, if you want a digital version, that's always available. If you want a physical hardback version from me, then you can order a copy and it'll be on back order and I'll get it to you as quickly as I can. So with that, everybody, if you want to get a preview to some of the upcoming interviews, make sure that you're on the Discord and on, that you're a member and everything. And I'll post something sometime soon about that. And I also have a couple of podcast appearances that I'll be on as a guest to talk about my cannabis journey and starting curious about cannabis and all of that. And I'll post updates on those when I learn more about when those are happening. So that's about all I've got for now. Simple live stream. Just wanted to test and see how the new settings on the camera look and give you a couple of updates. Hope you're all doing well out there. And with that, stay curious and take it easy. And I'll catch up with you all later.